I'm Jim Cunningham. I'm one of the Honorary Associate Ministers here at St Andrews on the Terrace. I'm also a member of the Study Trust, the St Andrews Trust for the Study of Religion and Society. And I want to welcome you to this joint venture between the St Andrews Trust and Common Good. The first person I want to introduce to you needs no introduction to many of you. She is the vision and the energy and the drive behind this conference. I'm talking about Jan Rivers, of course. So Jan, activist, librarian. That's a kind of new comparison, isn't it? The sort of traditional librarian were quiet people who sat in the background. And, well, you sat a bit in the background, but you're not going to tonight. Welcome, Jan, and you're going to speak to us.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Jan Rivers, tōku ingoa. Ko te whakamohiotanga mō te iwi whānui te kaupapa o tēnei hui. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. A warm welcome to everyone who's given their Friday evening to this important topic. I'm Jan Rivers from Public Good, and the conference is about information, ethics, and the public good. I'd like to thank the St Andrews Trust, who've been giving me very wise counsel in arranging and supporting the conference, and thanks to all the speakers who've given up their weekend, and to you as well. My role is to update you on how this conference came about, and to mention a few things about my hopes for this one. Last year, about 100 people met at St Andrews in August. The topic then, just before the 2014 election, was democracy, information, and the public good. Amongst the speakers were Jane Kelsey, who described to us the half-dozen ways in which the Trans-Pacific Partnership undercuts our democracy. Bronwyn Hayward from Canterbury University spoke to us about the importance of citizenship education for young people. Assistant Professor Michael Macaulay from Victoria University talked to us about the promise of New Zealand joining the proposed Open Government Partnership. And Sandra Gray and Charles Sedgwick spoke about recent research showing recent drops in the levels of trust in government by non-governmental organisations that provide public services. Max Rashbrook presented on the problems of inequality that inequality causes in elections. There were many other great speakers and presentations. In the summary of the discussions for the report which followed the conference, we identified three major issues which attendees thought were really important to follow up on, and they're described in the conference handout in the table. The first was the importance of citizenship education, both for young people and more broadly. Secondly was the necessity for people and organisations to speak out on any and every occasion when our democracy is being undermined. The third was about the provision of information from government and from our media to enable us to be effective citizens. While the topic of this conference speaks to the first and second objectives, it's the third, about the flow of accurate, ethical and meaningful information, that this weekend focuses on. Broadly, the conference is for people who already know that there's an information problem and who want to help understand its dimensions and what can be done. As journalist Gordon Campbell said in an article just before the TPPA deal was signed, we're not North Korea, but a 5-year blackout amounts to a near totalitarian abuse of information on matters of crucial public interest. Let's take another example where we simply don't have a national conversation about an important issue. The truth is that since the 2008 global financial crisis, New Zealand has had a public austerity programme as severe as those already in place in Greece and the UK. However, the downward trajectory in New Zealand's public spending already started from a significantly lower base compared to the GDP to government spending relationship in those countries. On current trends, the proportion of public spending to national income will be below any other OECD country and on a par with many of the world's poorest and most challenged countries in the near future. And yet there is no public conversation about this, either by the two biggest parties or in the New Zealand media. The situation of the news media in New Zealand, as well as overseas, has been described as a market failure by people as august as the New Zealand Law Commission, and more recently by Gavin Ellis, a former editor-in-chief of the New Zealand Herald. In this case, shouldn't a beneficent and pro-citizen government be looking at opportunities to boost rather than to cut, not only in the traditional areas of obvious social need, but also in the media, where changes in technology and advertising have undercut the funding model for quality journalism, and the result is a weakening in our democracy. So the purpose of the weekend is to do a number of things. It's to understand some of the dimensions of the problem, and we have some excellent speakers who can do this. It's to start to look at some problems, some solutions for funding public interest journalism, and again, we have some good speakers here. Finally, we'll hear quite a bit from organisations that are already on the ground and making a difference in working for better media and better access to government information. Speakers from the What If campaign, Scoop Media, Living Economies, FYI.org.nz, Action Station, Transparency International, the News Renewed, and the Democracy and Transparency Working Party of the environmental peak organisation ECO will be speaking, as well as the speaker from the Coalition for Better Broadcasting. And we'll also hear about the New Zealand Herald's support of some important initiatives, all examples of organisations working towards improvements for us as citizens. Having said that, we've barely touched the sides of this enormous issue. We haven't looked, for example, at the way that we actually receive information in a very emotional way and often are not able to process, information that's provided to us in a manipulative way. We're not talking about the role of librarians, the right of scientists to speak out, and the cultural and economic issues that support our use of information, which have kind of dimensions of race, class, language, location. I'm hoping from this conference that we create some specific projects and tools that are going to help New Zealand citizens. And if I can give you a flavour of what this might involve, here are two of my favourite ideas. The first involves my observation that neither the Labour nor the National Party made its manifesto available in such a way that it could be searched by interested citizens. This isn't a trivial issue. The National Party's housing policy scanned 4 documents. On both websites, you can search for text that you've previously found in the manifesto, but it doesn't find anything. If major political parties aren't willing to make it easy for us to find out how they would govern us, then we should at least make sure their promises can be found and used more easily. As an aside, it might be difficult to understand that a more vibrant housing sector really means our public housing stock could be owned or run from Australia, and of course that's a separate issue. Secondly, I would like to ask New Zealand NGOs and New Zealand citizens what they would have liked to have had in an open government partnership plan, rather than the bland and disappointing initiatives which it contains at the moment. A survey of non-governmental organisations and citizens to discover what they regard as most important would be a useful exercise. But this needs funding and a way of identifying the questions that we would like to ask. I can report today that ECO would like to support this initiative as well, so I very much hope it's one that comes to pass as a result of this weekend's conference. Last year's conference created some great new synergies between individuals and organisations, and I hope that this year's does the same. I welcome you to the conference and to the opportunity to discover the dimensions of the information, ethics and public good problem. I hope you enjoy the exploration. Thank you.